ice is dropped in Atlanta, Georgia, December 18th, Tuesday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down here. I'm Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with me as well. Let's start, guys. We'll get into the MLS playoffs in a second. Jose Mourinho is finally gone from Manchester United. We wondered if this would ever happen. I mean, are you surprised that it finally happened now?
What do you mean, John?
I'm sitting here going, it's about damn time, because I go back to the ICC tour where he was third year crotchety, get out of my yard, Jose Mourinho. Then the whole stuff, the on and off with Pogba, or is Lukaku going to start? The whole he's a cancer thing. It's just like, stop. And it was going to be a battle of Ed Woodward or Jose Mourinho, and I think they just finally got to the point to where it's just like, yo, dog, you're a distant memory right now on the table. I think he's 8 points out of the top 5 if memory serves, as I sit here and dig up the table real quick. But yeah, 8 points out of 5th place. You are 1 point ahead of Wolves, 2 ahead of Everton, West Ham, and Watford, 3 ahead of Bournemouth, 4 ahead of Leicester, 5 ahead of Brighton, 6 to 13, separated by 5 points. It was long overdue that this was supposed to go down. I mean, it's the year 3 blues, and you just sit there and you understand that it's just part of the gig, I guess, with Mourinho.
It's more than that. That's simple.
It's just
it's more than just year 3 stuff. He's not what he was at Madrid. No. He's not what he was at Inter Milan or Chelsea or anywhere else. It's something's different with him at this point, and I don't know if the whole process at Real Madrid just broke him. It seems like he's never been the same since he didn't win a Champions League there.
And when he wasn't considered to be the immediate replacement for Sir Alex in the first place.
And yeah, that's a big part of it too, because I think if you got him at that point and you made that decision, then you would have had a different experience with him in Manchester. Getting him at this point, after he felt like he had been passed over, I don't know if he was considered in other managerial moves at Manchester, because there's been a couple since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. It's pretty clear he wanted that job at that point. And when he didn't get that opportunity, that combined with the failures at Real Madrid to win the Champions League, really seems like he's just not what he used to be. And if you just looked at the end of his run in these last few years and you didn't know what he did before, you would think that, oh man, that guy's super overrated. He's not over the run of his career, but he is not what he used to be. And I don't know if he can ever get back there. That's the problem.
I think it's amazing. Imagine you're like a casual fan of the sport and you're just getting into EPL, and you know that you've like brushed up on your history a bit to jump in here. Imagine like brushing up on the history of Manchester United and then looking at what Mourinho has that team at right now going, wait, what?
Yeah. It's just with that talent, and all you get is crotchety, get out of my yard guy, and seeming to enjoy sowing discord amongst your roster and yourself, as opposed to anything else that could contribute to success and putting you back in the top 5. He's not who he was, and it's
not that though to me. Like the crotchety thing, I mean, I could care less. There's plenty of managers and coaches who have been successful being that guy. There's plenty of managers and coaches who have been successful when their players can't stand them. That's not uncommon. What surprised me is if you go back and you look at what he did with Chelsea in his first run there and what he did at Inter Milan, the guy was, and probably going to have to say was at this point, one of the best tactical managers in the game, period. And this year with Manchester United, it looks like there's no tactics. That's the part that I can't figure out. Being abrasive, doing all of those things, that's fine. That happens. He's done that in his career at different points. It's become too big of a part of who Jose Mourinho is in recent years, but he used to be a great tactician, and he's just not anymore. That's the biggest surprise to me. When you look at these Manchester United teams in 2018 that don't look like they have a plan, you would have never said that about a Jose Mourinho team before, and that's the part that I just can't figure out. What's next for him? I don't know. I would probably say a national team type of gig would be a good rebuilding job for him. I don't know what kind of club job would be worth it outside of, I think, John, you mentioned Inter Milan's already being mentioned as a possible landing spot.
Yeah.
I mean, he had success there, and he won everything he could win there. So that would really be about it for a place that he hasn't burned bridges, that he's been and had success, and a place that he could end up at and still be at a somewhat high level, because I just don't see anybody else taking a chance on him right now.
Yeah, and I think Kevin Egan had mentioned the amount of money that Mourinho is currently sitting on. Payoffs for being sacked twice at Chelsea and Manchester United, slightly over $65 million.
Yeah, I mean, he's
This is
fine.
overriding
He has to work.
This is overriding my theory that being a failed SEC coach is the best way to get rich quick.
Well, it wasn't quick.
Failed.
Yeah, quick is a relative term in this instance, I guess. But yeah, sign me to a concert. Sign me to a contract. Let me coach up Ole Miss for a couple of years. What? We only won 2 games. Well, that's fine. It's the SEC, so I was getting paid $3 million a year, and I got a $20 million buyout.
Yeah.
Or you could be Auburn with Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, we're going to make him so uncomfortable he quits. You guys sitting there, I'm good. I'll ride this out.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We'll see what happens
Revenue
with
neutral firings. That's just brilliant.
we'll see what happens with our friend Jose Mourinho. I do not think he will be under consideration in Atlanta. I don't think you have to worry about that. Doesn't really fit the profile of what you'd be looking for in Atlanta. So you can stop worrying. We already had a couple people ask. Chris Hutchison said, please confirm the Five Stripes have no interest in Jose Mourinho. I can't confirm it, but I don't think that's going to happen. So it doesn't seem to fit
no.
the idea. Yes, I would feel safe in saying no. That's true. Let's talk about the big news from yesterday, though, before we go to our first break. The MLS Playoff Format has now been changed. No surprises outside of one thing that they had not mentioned before. Single game elimination, 7 teams in each conference get in. The top seed gets a bye in the first round. The thing that surprised me the most, and I want to get both of your opinions on the other side of the break, what surprised me the most was the fact that they are not going to reseed. So if the number 7 team upsets the number 2, they would go into a match not against the top seed. They would stay on the other side of the bracket. I see no logic in this. It makes absolutely no sense. I know reseeding has been something that different leagues go round and round about. The NFL reseeds in the playoffs. The NBA does not. I don't know about hockey. John, do they reseed?
Yeah, I think they do, because I'm trying to remember when the LA Kings won a Stanley Cup as the 8, and they kept having to go up against the highest seed.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that they reseeded. I was a little surprised the NBA did not. I don't see any real value outside of just having a fixed bracket. And, I mean, I didn't like a lot of the conversation around the changes being to make it easier to understand. I don't think that's giving people any credit. it was not that hard to understand previously. If you want to go to a single game, look, I'm not a fan. I would not write that into my league if I was in charge of it. I like the two-leg series, but I do understand that a single game playoff is going to favor the home team, and the home team is going to be the higher seed. Makes sense. I'm okay with that. You want to make the regular season count for more? That is something that will absolutely do it. I don't like the lack of reseeding. I don't like compressing the schedule the way they did. I don't think you have to outside of the Qatar World Cup year, and that was specifically mentioned as one of the reasons for this. It's not something that's gotten a lot of play, but that's honestly, to me, the only thing that makes a lot of sense and why you're doing this. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and Sam Stejkal tweeted this out yesterday too, the schedule will shift a little bit starting next year in 2020. You couldn't move the schedule up this year because of CBA rules about off-season and length and time and these sorts of things. So this year's kind of the weird one in that 2018 ended beginning of December with MLS Cup. Then you have your off-season. You start 2019 at your traditional time, mid-January is when your training camps start. And your season will start the first week of March. Moving forward, because the season will end a lot earlier in 2019, your 2020 season, actual games could kick off mid-February, maybe the second week of February. So your training camps would, I'm assuming, open beginning of January, and there you go. So it will make more sense when that happens. This year is going to be awkward, and this year is going to be awkward for Atlanta United on a number of fronts because you're going to have CONCACAF at the beginning. You're going to have more midweek games. They're saying 6. The talk is that these games will be evenly divided out, and you won't see more midweek home games for Atlanta because they draw well than anybody else. I hope that's the case. I think they made more problems than they actually solved with this format change. I think they could have done what they wanted to accomplish in a better way. If it's all about 2022 and moving the schedule for Qatar, I don't know if you necessarily had to change it this early and change it in this way, but we'll see how it goes down. The reseeding thing is my biggest issue. There's no logical argument to me why that would be the case, why you would not reseed. But I don't know. We'll see what people have to say. I would love to hear your thoughts on Tuesday Thoughts. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Let us know your thoughts on the playoff format. Let us know your thoughts on, you want to talk Jose Mourinho, you want to have a little bit of soccer over there, we can do that. Whatever your thoughts are on a Tuesday morning, please share them with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. December 18th edition, Tuesday Thoughts. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. We're talking MLS Playoff Format changes that were announced yesterday. No major surprises outside of the reseeding element, which, I don't know, maybe somebody can explain it to me like I'm 5. I don't get it. I don't like it. Not a fan. Jarrett, you had a good point as we were talking in the break about something that this format change will create. What we expect it'll create anyway, in terms of just how matches will play out between top seeds and lower seeds.
Yeah, it's potential to create some boring-ass games. Look, when a 7 goes and plays a 2, the logical thing is going to be able to park that bus in front net, slash the tires, put it on blocks, play for penalties, and let the dice fall where they are. Because that's just the way this league has worked. I mean, at least with a 2-leg final, first off, the higher seed was always, in my mind, protected from a game just turning into you can't predict soccer kind of thing when you had the second leg. And I think you could ask teams, not in, say, the Atlanta situation where they had to play Red Bulls. It asked teams, hey, you can go out on the road and you can come out of your shell and play, because then you've got a game at home. So go get that road goal and find the importance of it. And I don't know, I'm just looking at the way it's set up now. I really am nervous about how many games we have where it's teams shelling up and, closing up shop, parking the bus, and we get 120 boring minutes as they try and drag this thing to penalties, unless, the home team breaks through and forces their hand. And that's just, I get what they were doing. I think this isn't, the intention by them. It's just the collateral damage of it. But man, it's aggravating to me.
But that's why you have to think through all of these things, because collateral damage is going to affect the way how these games play out. It's something that I know the talk about, okay, well, the knockout games, the one-game playoffs they've had, man, there's been a lot of drama, and there's been a lot of games that went down to the wire, and that's great. That's what it should be. That's what we want to see in the postseason. That makes everybody excited. I don't think that's the way you want your champion decided. This is something in the MLS kickoff email that they send out every day that has some news and notes and links and stuff like that. This is the last line of it. Last season, 3 of the 4 knockout round games went down to the wire, with one that needed penalties to sort. More of that, please. No, I don't want penalties to decide in a one-game playoff if a team is going to the final. I don't want that to be the regular occurrence. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I think you're going to see a lot more come down to the lottery of penalties in terms of your playoffs, and that's not what you want to see. It's not what I want to see. I would rather see the good teams move on. That's why I'm not really a fan of adding the 7th team. I do get that over time it's not going to feel as big because you're going to add more teams. I think you could have accomplished what you wanted to accomplish by taking a team away from the postseason and going to 5, but they weren't going to do that. So you go to 7. That makes it easier to get in and get on a hot streak and run through 4 games and win a trophy. I don't like the messaging the way this is going down. I'm not a fan. John, what do you think? What do you not like? What do you like about this?
I don't like the lack of reseeding for a double negative. I will want to have reseeding in this kind of a situation. Like I said, if someone can explain it to me, I know Josh Eisenberg is sitting here saying he doesn't like reseeding. If you beat the higher seed, you should get an easier route. I just don't think that.
No, I disagree, Josh. I disagree because if you're the 7 seed, The way you would have gotten the easier route is to win more games in the regular season, which is what you're trying to stress with this. If you pull one upset, and let's say it was this year, it's Montreal and Atlanta. That would have been your 2-7 game. Let's say Montreal comes into Mercedes-Benz and plays the exact same way they did back in April with a 5-4-1. They get a deflected goal and win, and they move on. They do nothing to show quality. They just sit back and defend. They get a lucky goal. They move on. They shouldn't get an easier road because of that. They were the 7 seed, in my opinion. They should have to go play the top team that's left. If you can't say in your messaging about it that the new rules put a premium on regular season excellence and then have no reseeding. Those two things don't go together in my book.
So for me, I don't like the fact that you're not reseeding. I don't like the notion of a 7th team, although I understand it because you're going to be having more teams later, and I know that this year is going to be weird. Single elimination, not a fan. The idea that you're going to have schedule compression in the regular season with those midweek games, because if you're in schedule compression in MLS,
that might be a one-year thing, though.
Okay.
Well, no, we just talked about it. Like they're talking, the season's going to start earlier, so that might be a temporary thing. So that to me is not as big of a deal here. If it's 1 year of it being awkward, okay. Not a fan, but at least I get it.
Like I said, not a fan, because if you're dealing with schedule compression, Open Cup, and this anticipated thing with Liga MX.
But that's what I'm saying. The Liga MX thing isn't starting this year. The schedule compression might be 1 year. That's what I'm saying, is that they're talking about the season starting earlier to get away from schedule compression. Schedule compression would be 1 year because they couldn't start earlier this year because of how late 2018 ended and CBAs and mandated time off and all of that. So if in 2020 the season ended previously at mid-October or early November for MLS Cup 2019, and then your first games in 2020 are Valentine's Day, then you're not going to have as much schedule compression. So that might be a temporary thing. So that doesn't factor in to anything to do with the Liga MX format. And that's something that they have to show it, but that's the talk, is that the season will move up. So I'm going to put that one big on the back burner because I think that's just a 1 year deal.
And then when's international break?
I mean, there's which one?
The last one. The
November.
last one toward the end of this. Okay. I would still like the season to end at the international break and then go into the playoffs after that. That's just a personal preference. So I'm the one thing I don't like is reseeding. I have a lot of reservations about some other things. And so I guess I will wait past that. When we have this discussion again this time next year.
Yeah.
Then
I think some of your reservations might be 1 year reservations. So that's okay. I can deal with that. I can understand that. I would do the same in the way the current season starts. I would have the regular season end going into the November international break and into your postseason afterwards. But you got to deal with the World Cup in 2022 because you can't do that then. So if you have to move up to deal with that, then you move up to deal with it, and that's what you do. As long as you're not having an off season on a regular basis that for some teams would start in early October, and then your next season doesn't start until mid-February. I'm not a fan of that on the regular. That's a long time. I'd like to see the off season be no more than 2 months for most teams. That's something I hope that they can figure out.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Yeah, I think it might be more temporary, but let's see how that goes. This year, if they move up the schedule for 2020, then okay. I hope they can balance the schedule when they do that, because you're going to have a lot of games in Atlanta early in the season, in Miami in 2020, in Orlando, in LA, both LAs, in San Jose. You can do Portland and Seattle. They don't get quite as cold. If Montreal uses the Big O, you could play a game there. You're going to have some tricky spots, and I don't want to see Atlanta get front-loaded with a schedule because they can do it, and then late in the season when you're chasing playoff seeding, have more games on the road. I hope they can find a way to balance that. That's not going to be easy to do.
So, yeah, I would just anticipate a lot of warm weather games to start. Some home game runs, home match runs for folks up north. I mean, Vancouver, you can get away with it because you just close the roof at BC Place or whatever they call it now. So there's going to have to be some give and take in some of the colder climes like Colorado and Montreal, and figure things out so you don't end up with 98 games in a stretch late in the year at home.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to figure out how to make this work, and over time, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on how it goes down. I think you're going to have weirder results here than people are thinking, and that's what I'm not a huge fan of. Back to the reseeding issue. So, if you're 7 seed, and let's look at this year, like we said, that would be Montreal. If they beat Atlanta in the first round and they go into the conference semis, they would be playing the winner of 3-6. So they would be playing the winner of, based off this year's format, New York City and Philadelphia. Let's say Philadelphia advances. Why are Philadelphia and Montreal, your 6 and your 7, getting to play each other in the conference semis? That's the part that I'm not a fan of. And they shouldn't, if your 7 seed goes through, they shouldn't play the 3 seed either. They should have to play the 1. Yes, they still have to go on the road, sure, but who would you, if you're Montreal and you win that first game, who would you rather face in the next round? Would you rather face at Yankee Stadium, or would you rather face at Red Bull Arena? That one's a little bit of a toss-up because of Yankee Stadium's weirdness. But in general, you'd rather play the 3 seed than the 1. That's just a fact. So I don't like the lack of reseeding. There's no logical explanation for it. That's the part that you can't tell me regular season is important and then say, oh yeah, well if you upset somebody, then you get to play a lesser team in the next round because we have a fixed bracket. You're going against making the regular season more important when you do that. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but there's going to be some weird results, and there's going to be some big consternation about those. Before we go to break and before we start getting into your Tuesday thoughts on the other side, I thought Mark Fishkin had a really funny tweet about this. 2013, the Red Bulls lost the playoff series despite scoring an away goal. 2014, the league added the away goals rule. 2013, 15, and 18, the team won the Supporters' Shield, but they lost in the playoffs after road defeats. 2019, the league allows the Shield winner to host all playoff matches. I don't know. MLS narrative, maybe? I don't know. It's just funny. Maybe it's all trying to help the Red Bulls find a way.
There you go.
Maybe. MLS narrative. Possibly. We're going to take a break. We'll come back with some of your Tuesday thoughts on the other side. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Umpolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, December 18th, Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. Let's get into those Tuesday thoughts from the folks out there on the Twitters talking about playoffs, talking about all of the things that are going on at the moment in terms of MLS and what's happening. Let's start from the top and we'll work backwards. Rachel Affleck, if 6 and 7 get through, you would be guaranteed to have a conference final with a very poor team. Hardly a good situation for a conference final. No reseeding is just plain dumb. I'm assuming everyone's in agreement on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Everyone is nodding.
Yeah, we're all nodding, which doesn't work for radio. That's a yup and a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think that's an all in agreement kind of thing. I can't really build on that.
Tyler Rice says, my concerns, more midweek games, long off season, teams playing for penalties. I don't mind single elimination. Not ideal, but trying to appeal to the casual fan. Single elimination can still be exciting. Examples, U.S. Open Cup, World Cup round of 16, etc. As we said, we'll start from the beginning of Tyler's. More midweek games. Hopefully that's not going to be a long-term thing. Hopefully it's just because this year is getting more compressed. Longer off-season. Again, hopefully these things get tweaked. Teams playing for penalties, not a fan of. And you're going to see that, Jarrett, when you get into these games. When you get into, lesser seeds, one game, they don't have a home game to try to make anything up. They're going to sit back and defend first. That's how these games are going to get played out, I think.
Yeah, I think so. You're going to sit back, you're going to defend first, and let the chips fall where they may. And look, next year, you could have a situation, on the other hand, where all of the games are a lot of fun. Somebody scores early and forces the hand. Totally possible. But I don't like the potential that it creates. So I hope I'm wrong. But we'll see. I'm okay with being wrong in situations like this, but man, I hope we don't end up with 4 games going to 120 minutes and then penalties in situations where you're like, well, that team ain't got no reason to be playing here. And it's a different animal than it is with other sports. I think it's kind of weird to quantify sometimes. Soccer is just a different animal when it comes to, home road advantage. Your home team does have the advantage, but just the way the game is played, the way the game plays out, the road team, unlike other sports, can really just kind of sit back and take the air out of the ball more so than they can in another sport. And try and play for what amounts to a coin flip.
And not every team can do that. Let's also be real. There's some teams that are going to be in that 5, 6, 7 range that they just can't sit back and play that way. They're not capable of it. So that'll happen too. But I think you'll see more of that than we've generally seen in the MLS postseason. John, I want to ask you, between single elimination versus 2-leg series, I don't know if part of the thinking here is to appeal to the casual fan. My process over these last couple of years, talking to people about how things played out, I didn't think the casual fan was all that confused by the two-leg series. I think away goals maybe a little bit, but 2 legs, 1 game, I don't know if that was needed to make it easier. I don't know if that was really part of this process.
No, and for me, in all of the limited feedback that I have heard one way or the other, the only aspect of the 2-leg series to the casual fan was goal difference and away goals. That and figuring out the math. That was the only thing about the 2-leg series that needed any kind of an explainer. If you're a casual fan, you came into the entire dynamic with, okay, these are the rules of engagement. So this is how it is. And you take it for what those rules are, and you learn about the away goals tweak, and that's it. I understand the idea of thinking that, okay, for the casual fan, let's just introduce the 1 leg and then you're done with it. But I think at the same time, when you do something like that, I think that you take the intelligence of your fan for granted a little bit when you do something like that, if it is in fact something for the casual fan and that's what your rationale is. I think just have your rules of engagement as they are, and then let the casual fan learn and grow inside the game for what it is. So for me, if it was a casual fan engagement thing, I just, you should have just stuck with what you had, because what you were doing wasn't all that wrong in the first place.
Yeah, I didn't see as much confusion about it as maybe I thought could have happened. It's not that hard to understand. I think people do get it better than they consider. The single game part of it, Jarrett, for me comes down to making the regular season matter more. And it does. Because in a 1 game versus a 2-legged series, the home field advantage is so much more important in that. A 2-legged series is designed to take home field advantage away. A 1 game, your higher seed gets to host. That makes the regular season more important. That part they got right. And if you want to make the regular season mean more, and I've seen lots of negative responses saying, oh, well, now 7 teams get in, the regular season doesn't mean anything. I disagree in that, because 2/3 of your 1-game playoff matches, the higher seeds won, the home teams won. I think that shows the importance of hosting in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird thing, and I think a lot of it, in the contrary to that, is a matter of recency bias, and I've had to check myself with that. Because you look at the last few years, in first round of the playoffs, the last few years, road teams have been out collecting scalps at a rate beyond what is expected. Like, they have been way beyond the rate of road teams winning in the first round of the playoff. And I think that kind of plays into that whole that whole bias right now of the idea that you're minimizing the importance of the regular season, because we've seen it happen so much recently, and in some cases some big high profile games. But in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it does favor the home team. You just got to see it play out, and I think it will in the long term favor the home team. They'll be able to get the job done at a high clip. But I think you're going to need, and as aggravated as I am by the entire thing, it's going to take patience. Well, we got to see this play out for a couple of years and collect some data on it before we burn down the village.
Yeah, and it sounds like this will be the format through the 2022 season. Once you get through that World Cup, then we'll see if things change. The other thing I think that they got right, John, is now your playoffs are not split up by the international break. It will be 3 weeks. You'll do it roughly a game a week till you get to your MLS Cup final, and that's it. That's a much better way of doing it. You're not going to have that weird, awkward international break in the middle that affects the momentum Not just for the teams, but for, TV, for media, for everything, where people are like, oh, yeah, the playoffs are still going on.
Right. And to me, that is an important aspect of any kind of rule tweaking that has happened in this go-round or will happen in the future. For me, preserving momentum on air, off air, on the pitch, for the team, for the fan, for the network, so you can have that continuous run. For me, it's important because, dealing with it this year with the casual fan, it's like, okay, well, why are they not playing? And then you have that chance of losing the interest of the casual fan that was there and then having to grab them back. So this way, everything is in that straight line that I think that you needed from the beginning. So that way you have the casual fan engaged and involved and understanding what's going on. They don't have to sit there, lose their engagement, re-engage, and then get the momentum back that was lost. So the word that you used for me, momentum, is multitasking here. It's a bunch of different fronts, but the fact that you don't lose that momentum now, I think, is key.
Yeah, it's an important part. Another thing that the league has cited as a reason for this, not exactly forcefully, better weather. They talk about the Toronto MLS Cups in 2016 and 17. Wasn't exactly the greatest weather. You're moving it up a month. I mean, how much of a difference is it really going to make when your explanation is better weather, parentheses, hopefully, and your line is not that a November MLS Cup in Toronto would cause people to pack shorts and tank tops, but it wouldn't hurt. Not really a forceful argument there.
No.
I don't think it makes much of a difference. Moving it up a month, I really don't think matters. And then you're going to lose that when you move the season up, potentially a month, and have some weird scheduling that will result from it moving forward with certain teams having to host more games early in the season because they're going to be the only ones who can. I don't know if that trade-off is going to actually be worth it at the end, and we'll have to wait and see a few years on that one. But the weather argument, not really a fan, not really buying it. Let's take a break. Let's get more into Tuesday thoughts on the other side. We've got a few that have piled up. We'll get to those after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back, Soccer Down Here. Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show, December 18th, talking MLS playoffs. Lots of thoughts about it. Let's get back to Twitter on them. Shiva says, so in order to avoid international break, why couldn't they just move the season up and finish in November? Why did they have to change the playoff format to avoid the international break? World Cup 2022. That's the only reason why. Because if that was a normal World Cup, I would have done the same thing. I would have moved the season to where it finished going into the November break and then did this playoff format, and MLS Cup is around the same time. And there you go. Everything is roughly as it is schedule-wise. World Cup 2022, you've got to move it up. And they said that in their press release. They've left that part out of some of the different pieces at MLSsoccer.com about it, which has been, I guess, a little surprising that it hasn't been there. I don't know why. I don't know why they're running from that being part of the conversation here, because, I mean, it is. It has to be. You have a very weird schedule from the World Cup. This is in the press release. It says compatible with World Cup 2022, and that's one of the reasons why they're moving forward with it. The new postseason format timing will conclude prior to World Cup 2022, which begins in Qatar on November 21st. So that's a big thing here that, we've talked about scheduling and how things are going to change in 2020 versus 2019. This is from the press release. The new postseason format timing will conclude prior to World Cup 2022, which begins in Qatar on November 21st. It's all about that World Cup. That's what's affecting it. Now, do they change it after that? You could. It just depends on what kind of success you've had with starting your schedule in February. I don't know. But, Jared, I don't see any reason why to run from this. If that's part of your reasoning why you're moving everything up, say it. Other leagues are talking about it.
Just be honest about it. It's okay.
Yes.
It's a big part of the reasoning.
Yeah, we know it's a weird situation. It's going to be weird and annoying, and I'm still going to throw things about putting the World Cup over there in the first place. But, it's said and done. You're not going to flip this at the 11th hour. Explain it. Say, look, this is one of the reasons why is because we got a World Cup in the desert, and, they had to adjust the World Cup timing. We're adjusting with them. That's okay. Hey, explain it. Don't. I'd rather you explain it and be honest with us than come up with some flimsy, weird excuse.
The Colonel is back in the A. What's up, Colonel? Welcome back.
Whoop, whoop.
And John, let's get your thoughts on the Colonel saying season compression and playoff configuration are fine if Atlanta wins the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup. Any other result and new format is an ill-conceived knee-jerk reaction to solve a problem that didn't need to be solved. There were some things that needed to be solved. I think that's it. What do you think?
Well, it's for what problems needed to be solved. For me, the biggest one was, for me, that is the largest problem. So that needed to, so we're talking momentum and sliding everything to the international break. That to me was number one, underline, exclamate, capitalized. That's what needed to be addressed. So I don't think that sliding everything a handful of weeks so you can contain and maintain momentum was a knee-jerk reaction. I think that was the number one thing on the board that needed to be fixed.
That was a big part of it, but it's knee-jerk is probably not fair here. I think they've had to think about this because of that World Cup format, but
yeah,
I think they could have handled it a little bit better. Let's get another person's thoughts on this. Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer joining us. What's up, Joe?
What's up?
MLS playoff format. You like it? You don't like it? What do you like? What do you don't like?
So my initial reaction was I don't like it. It's going to make the games more exciting to watch. When they come around, everyone's going to talk next year. Everyone's going to talk about how it's so much more fun to watch because it's just it's a one and done. It's going to be each game will be a bigger event. But I'm kind of, I'm rubbed the wrong way that there's 7 teams from each conference going, and they basically have the same opportunity. Obviously, some teams will get a home game, but I really, I really struggle with the whole 7 teams making it thing. And then those 7 teams only having to win 1 game off of each team that's in it to progress. So, sorry, I got an interruption here.
Okay, that's all good.
Yeah,
do you think?
Sorry, that's my talks.
Joe Patrick
Nothing
jumps
like
in real fast.
Live radio.
Yes, gives his thoughts and then has to dip. I love it.
Joe Patrick swoops in, drops the facts, gets out.
I love it.
Oh my god.
Tyler Rice chimes in. He says, agree with John about U.S. fans' intelligence, but MLS is still trying to attract new fans like my dad who's never watched soccer until Atlanta. He was confused by aggregate. He got it, but after a lengthy explanation from me. MLS trying to remove any barrier for new fans. I don't know if that was honestly a major part of their thinking. It could be. I mean, just like they're not really talking about World Cup 2022 being a major part of their thinking, maybe that was a big part. But the way they've talked about 1 game versus 2-leg series has been more about making the regular season more important and home field advantage and higher seed having an advantage and those types of things. So it does make it easier to understand, for sure. I mean, obviously, 1 game versus 2, it's simple. The winner moves on, that's it. But I don't know how necessary of a change that was. I think people were understanding where 2 legs was going and how it was. This does create some different issues. And for me, Jared, I'll go back to what you've said from day one about this is going to create some negative soccer in those knockout round games because lower seeds are going to say, you know what, we're just going to play for penalties. We see it all the time in every competition around the world when you get to this stage.
It's because it's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on the matchup. And, yeah, it needs to be quantified that this isn't going to be every single game isn't going to be a matter of it coming down to penalties, when one team bunkering. Because like you said, not every team can do it. It could be, you could get some real interesting stuff. Like, let's say, for example, for Atlanta, Atlanta doesn't finish, top 2 in the league this year. Let's say they make a run at Champions League, they make a run in the U.S. Open Cup, and they dip a bit in league play. There's a chance something like that happens. Could happen for Red Bulls. Could happen for, really anybody. Houston. Well, for Atlanta's sake, Atlanta's not really a team that's designed to sit back and bunker. They've shown us they can, but it's not really in their DNA to sit back, park the bus for 120 minutes and play for penalties. They could go out on the road and try and take it to somebody. Not every team's going to do that. I'm just going to be grouchy when it does happen.
Joe Patrick's back with us. What do you think about that part, Joe? You're going to have teams come into this knockout scenario and play negatively just to play for penalties.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen that happen already, though, right? Like that happens in a 2-legged series. Teams will come in, try to sit back and absorb that pressure. I think it's harder to do over 2 legs, over more minutes. I think what really just like annoys me about this is that it's different than it is in any other domestic league in the world, and it's just like another one of those things that MLS, I don't know if they feel a need to have to be different or this just isn't the way that it's typically done. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's FA Cup, I guess, is technically those are 1 leg as well, but and those kinds of domestic cups. But I don't know. So one thing that's been grinding my gears is about So the argument that you need to keep more fan bases involved throughout a season. If you don't have promotion relegation, so much of the MLS season doesn't matter for fan bases because they have no hope of making the playoffs, and they're clearly they're not going to get relegated. So basically, nothing's going to happen for those fans, and you kind of have to keep them engaged. I don't like that as a reason to kind of diluting the competition and making it easier to be involved with the championship, competition that happens at the end of the season. the championship competition that happens at the end of the season should be reserved for the teams that earn it, who really are the best of the best, the creme de la creme of the league. And so I just don't like that so many teams will have a chip in a chair, as they say, to have a shot at it. I think, and when you talk about the regular season mattering, I feel like in a way it makes it matter less, because you allow, a team that grinds all season and earns like a 2 or a 3 seed. They might get a home game over a 7 or 7-6 seed, but like other than that, those teams, it's pretty much the same. They got the same shot. So I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not that much different from having it be a 6 team, but 7 teams, that's 14 teams in the league. It's a lot for me.
When you get to 28, which is the plan, it's 50%. It won't feel quite as bad then, but yeah, I would have honestly went to 5 and did this format where the top seed gets a bye, and it's 2 versus 5 and 3 versus 4. And you could have went that way. You could have kept it at 6. Yeah. And that's what 4 card says. Just keep it at 6, give the top 2 a first round bye. You could have made that work.
Yeah, and I think, the thing with giving both the top 2 a bye, that's interesting because those teams are competing anyway for a supporter shield, right? Usually, or an Eastern Conference. There's some prestige in winning the conference, but then you also get a whole nother race in who gets the 2 seed. So you have maybe the teams that end up 3 and 4. You get a race between those teams for who's fighting for that bye. Atlanta United was part of that race its first season. It came down to the last day before I forget who won that bye that year. Anyway, Atlanta United didn't get it. If they could have gotten the win against Toronto, I think they would have gotten the 2 seed. I want to say.
Yeah, NYC got it.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, but I'm with you on the 5. I would be down with 5 as well. 7 is just hard for me to swallow. But I mean, I'm sure I'll come around to it. Like I said. Once these games start being played next year, everyone will like them, I think.
Here's one other underrated part of it before we finish up hour 1. Depending on how they schedule it, and that's a little still up for grabs in terms of, are they going to play these playoff games midweek because TV numbers are better? Are they going to play them on the weekend? How's it going to look? You could have a scenario where your number 1 seed gets a bye in that first game. They haven't played a competitive match in 3 weeks going into a do-or-die knockout round game, and they come out a little bit flat in one game and they're out. I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that because you have that international break after the last regular season match, then a bye. That's a long time to sit and wait.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just something that teams will have to deal with. I think it's interesting to see kind of, and there are reasons for this, but I think it's interesting to kind of see the way MLS is going and compressing the postseason, which goes complete opposite to a very popular NBA season or postseason like the NBA, which does everything it can to extend it and get a game on TV every single night. Two completely different ideas on how to structure your playoff system, and there's tons of reasons why, right? Like there's obviously the NBA is a much more popular sport, gets more money, advertiser, there's more revenues, there's more incentives for the NBA to stretch it out, and maybe by compressing the postseason schedule for MLS, it can kind of help them break through in those upper echelons of the TV ratings and kind of, go through that glass ceiling a bit. But I do find that interesting that we're seeing kind of different takes on how to structure the postseason competition.
Well, Joe, thanks for the time. We appreciate it. Thanks for calling back in. Also appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry for that interruption.
Oh, dude, it's all good. We're going to take a break.
Rusty.
Yeah. Wrap up hour number 1. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, December 18th, Tuesday thoughts. A lot of thoughts on playoffs, a lot of thoughts on the MLS changes to the playoff format, and we'll keep getting into those and any other thoughts you might have. We've got some different thoughts on managerial searches, on players, on all kinds of stuff, but mostly on the playoffs. John, Tyler Rice says, speaking of 14 out of 24 teams making the playoffs, I know more teams will be added, but how many total teams is MLS aiming for? I'm not sure. 32 like the NFL. If they get to 36, could you see an MLS 1 and 2 with 18 teams in each and with pro-rel between them? I thought Don Garber made it clear at State of the League, John, that they're looking beyond 28, but I don't think they really know what that's going to be just yet.
Right. And we know that at some point in the horizon that there are thoughts, and I think the USL is already aiming in that direction, that you will have promotion and relegation. But what is that number? What's a comfortable number? What does MLS want to do with MLS 1 and 2? It's coming. It's not around the corner. It's down the road at some point. But 32, seems an NFL-ish number, but, if you go 20 and 12, much like if you were to take the British model where it's 20 and then you have other divisions of 20 plus, do you get to 40? Do you get to 36? What's the number? I mean, I'm obviously thinking it's north of 32 to get to an MLS 1 and 2. Do you do an 18 and an 18? I could see that, but reminder that yes, it's on the books, but it's not the page that's going to be turned. It's not going to be the next page that's turned in the books. It'll be coming, just not soon. It'll be there.
I mean, it's not that far off to get to 32 if you want to push it, because you're going to be at 26 here shortly with Nashville and Miami. Austin is all but ready to go once they have their stuff in line. So that would be 27. You have a number of cities that are bidding to get 28. I still think I could see a scenario where MLS says, yeah, we were going to give 2 of you spots, but we had to make room for Austin and Columbus and all that nonsense. So we're going to go ahead and go to 30 with the teams that have already bid, and then open up 2 more spots to new bidders, because you've got Louisville talking a little bit. You've got different things happening in Charlotte from the original bid. You've got other cities that have popped up and might consider it. I mean, once you get to that point, you're talking 10 years down the road. Could a Birmingham be interested? Could a Jacksonville be interested? I mean, there's all kinds of different cities that could see where MLS is and say, you know what, we want in on that. I think up to 32, you can keep the format as it is and have your playoffs, have your MLS, have it, roughly look like your other major professional leagues in the United States. Once you start truly considering going past 32, I think you have to consider what an MLS 1 and 2 and what that could look like here. I don't know how far off that is. I don't know what that looks like. It sounds like USL is going to be a test case for it between USL Championship and USL League One. Once USL League One gets completely populated, I think you'll see it. Your budgets are not dramatically different between that. They will be between your USL Championship and MLS. So going from there, probably not as easy. Could you see top USL Championship clubs that are ready to buy into MLS make that jump then, but in the way that we've seen here traditionally, and then MLS have its own MLS 1 and 2? Yeah, it could happen. Definitely not ruling it out. I don't think, because of at least the gaps that we see between revenue and expenditures right now between the different divisions, I don't think you'll see wide open promotion relegation across the board. I just don't think it's reasonable because of those gaps. I think you're setting businesses up to fail by doing it. And you also have to figure out your business structure with Major League Soccer, because it has grown because of its business structure. If you strip that away, I don't know what it looks like, and I don't know if it is what it's been. This will continue to be a conversation, and it's something that's going to have to get figured out by the league leadership, by the federation, by USL, everything else. It's awkward, and it's going to be awkward because sports just function differently here. I think it's going to look like a hybrid of a promotion relegation. I just don't think it's going to be what some people want to see. And I don't know what to tell the people that want to see it that way. I just, from my experience in soccer in this country and what I've watched happen and what I've seen happen, I don't think it's a smart plan to have it wide open. I just don't see it ever happening. Beyond the business side, beyond the actual functioning of changing the way Major League Soccer is structured and all the things that I think are complete pie in the sky of what some people would want to see. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's realistic to be successful. I don't think it opens up investment as some people would claim. I think honestly it restricts it. I think people are going to be more conservative about spending and investing and digging in if they could drop down levels because they have a bad season on the field. I just don't see that happening. I think generally we see the opposite happen when you get into those clubs that are a threat to get relegated. So I don't know. There's elements of it that are obviously good. It's worked in some situations. It has really failed in other situations. I think here it would not look the same, but I think you could see an element of it in an MLS 1 and MLS 2, and I think, honestly, first you'll see it in a USL Championship and USL League 1 scenario, and you'll get a taste of it there, and I think the reaction to that will be very interesting, and I'm sure Major League Soccer would be watching very closely if USL institutes that.
I was trying to think off the top of my head when you were talking about promotion and relegation and trying to spend more than you really should to try to stay alive. And it was Leyton Orient, Portsmouth, Blackpool, Charlton, Sunderland, Bolton Wanderers, who are still having problems. And I'm sure if I looked at the tables, I could come up with other examples. But that was just off the top of my head. Teams that spent above their means to try to keep up with the Joneses and stay afloat and end up causing more damage to their footprint, both on the pitch and off. And I just think that here in the States, it will be different because of what we've seen with ownership groups and leagues trying to make sure that everything goes forward as one line, as opposed to folks who want to try to overspend and then really put themselves in a big hurt by doing it. I think that here it's going to be different. And then to your point, I think that the USL will be your test case.
Yeah, it'll be your test case for that version of it, not for promotion relegation as a whole. I don't see it across all levels. I think it will be a hybrid of what we've seen here in a league structure plus elements of it between levels that can be comparable. And that's right. What it has to be. It's just that your gap between right now a USL Championship budget and a Major League Soccer budget it's astronomical, and it's not going to get that much closer anytime soon. And then your gap down to a NPSL Pro or NISA or any of those types of budgets, forget it. I mean, to go from one to the other, it's going to be just a dramatic difference. So I think you'll have it between different levels, but you're going to have to show that you have the resources to be at different levels. So
right,
we'll see. We'll see how it goes down. Tofka TLC, and I've got to disagree with you on this one. He says, I was already leaning this way, but at this point, Supporter Shield is my champion now. I can't accept this format as league champion. It has been cheapened to practically nothing now. Look, I get what you're saying, and I think Supporter Shield will have more importance under this format. I do. But just because some fans say that I'm not accepting MLS Cup as the championship, it's not going to change it. It is the championship. It's the way the league's structured. It is the champion of the league. I don't buy that. You know, we had this conversation a little bit when Atlanta lost Supporter Shield and how people felt. People that said that Supporter Shield meant more to them than MLS Cup, I think felt a little bit differently after December 8th. And that's generally what it comes down to. MLS Cup is the champion of the league. I'm not a fan of the playoff format changes. We'll see how it plays out. But to say this and say, like, you won't watch MLS Cup playoffs, I disagree once you get into it. I really do. I think the playoffs will mean as much as they do now. I'd love to see Supporter Shield mean more, though. I'd love to see that be bigger. It's just it's not the champion of the league because it's not a balanced schedule either. You know, I mean, you can't compare Atlanta to even Red Bull schedule-wise this year because Atlanta played Orlando 3 times and Red Bulls played NYC 3 times. That's not fair. That's not equal. So I'm not a fan of that. I don't think that's going to be fair to say that that's the champion either, but I would like to see it treated with more importance. And I think when we get back to the traditional CONCACAF Champions League qualifying, Jarrett, the Supporter Shield and the regular season record in the other conference as well will have a little more cachet to it.
Yeah, I'd say so. I look forward to the takes developing on this whole entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
On multiple levels over the next, week, honestly. And then it'll go beyond that. It'll go beyond the month, the year, getting into next season. But I think just the knee jerk was there for a lot of us. And, it's one of those things like I'm going to sleep on this for a couple days and see if I'm still flustered by it or see how I'm feeling then. And see, kind of it's not going to stop. It's not going to, stop folks from watching the league and going to games and being excited about it. But just see how it plays out now.
I think one we can all agree on, Josh Eisenberg says, bring back the shootout style penalties, or we'll just say
yes,
the 35s.
The 35s?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see Joseph take a 35-yard run up on a shootout.
Joseph would have fun with that.
Yeah. Where he used Kevin Kratz. What did he do? He just walked up and hit it. He didn't even run with it. The keeper came flying out, and he had the ball in the upper 90. You know how it goes.
Yeah, totally. I can support this. So if we do that one game, okay, as long as we have the 35-yard shootout to decide draws, I'm cool with that. I can make that trade-off. Let's take a break, get back into the Twitter timeline after this. Stay with us.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, Tuesday Thoughts. All the thoughts about the playoffs. Tafka TLC chimes back in. I wasn't going at you, Tafka, but I want to get into this because this is actually a really interesting discussion. He says, I never said I wouldn't watch or that MLS Cup would not continue to be the championship for the league. I just have a hard time accepting a team that managed to win 3 or 4 games at season's end as the champion. I think Supporter Shield is a much more difficult accomplishment. This is a very soccer argument, though, because baseball. Jarrett, let's get into this. So you play 162 games in the regular season, and your postseason is decided by a maximum of how many games? If you go all the way to the end of each series, what? I don't remember if it's 7 and 5 games at this point. How many games would a team play maximum in the postseason in baseball?
It's 5-7-7.
5-7-7.
14.
Well, and then 1 if you're the wild card play-in.
Yeah, so up to 20
but
games.
you wouldn't be the best. Okay, but if you're talking about the best record, if you had the best record in the regular season in baseball,
most you can play is
19.
19.
19 games. So 4 or 3, they'll say 3 versus 34 compared to that. It's comparable. I mean, basketball, I think it's probably a bigger percentage of postseason. Like it's almost like a second season in some ways. The NFL, it's what do you play if you are a top seed? You could play 3 games. Is that right? But you're only playing 16 in the regular season.
Something like that.
Yeah. So,
division round, conference championship, and yeah.
It's a very soccer argument because of how championships are decided in other leagues where you don't have playoffs. But I think in countries that do have playoffs, they look at it completely differently. Mexico doesn't function as, okay, well, the best regular season. I look at them as the true champion. They understand that you have to go through the Liguilla and win your playoffs. And for me, that's the one you look at outside of the split season. You look at the way Mexico has structured their postseason, and that's the way you make it work and find, I think, the best of everything in it. look at the drama that we saw in this past final for Mexico with Club America and Cruz Azul. I mean, you got two teams that are in the same city, and that added to it in a rivalry. But that playoff didn't, take away anything. Now, I don't want to get into Costa Rica's playoffs, which are complicated and weird and strange, and we've learned about it this week. The way they work is your top team.
Amazing. They're amazing.
Your top regular season team basically gets an out. So if, in this case, it was Saprissa, they got knocked out by Herediano in the semifinals because your top 4 go to playoffs out of 12. So your top 4 go in. Herediano knocked out Saprissa, who was the number 1 seed. Herediano went on to win the next round against Alajuelense, and you'd think, oh, they're the champion. No, they're not the champion.
Wait a minute.
Saprissa gets another crack at them because you have to have a grand finale, because they were the number 1 seed during the regular season. So that would be bonkers if you followed something like that. Why not? I think Mexico's the way to go. I totally get what you're saying, Tafka, and you are not the only one by any stretch who thinks this way. I just think it is a very specific argument to the way that some people look at soccer. And it's not even specifically just a soccer thing, because I don't think Mexican fans look at it that way. And they have playoffs, and they're used to what it means and how it feels and all that. So, baseball, you never had that situation, but you're playing such a long regular season. If you have a great regular season and you get knocked out in, a best of 5, how does that feel? That kind of stinks. If you win, say you win 105 games, and then you get knocked out in the best of 5.
Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily saying the best team won at the end of the year, but that's how it works. So it's always a trade-off. I think if you don't have a balanced schedule, you can't have the regular season champion being the true champion. You just can't. And it can't have the same importance without a balanced schedule, because there's always questions. It's an interesting argument, but I don't see MLS ever going away from playoffs. I just want the playoff structure to be the best it can be. And I think they added things to this and changed things that they didn't need to change. I think they tweaked things sometimes just for the sake of tweaking. Now, okay, it kind of blew my mind when I just read this. Championship trains, Thin Plot.
Oh, yeah.
Says, how about you do it like the FA Cup and do a replay in case of a draw? Seems to be the best of both worlds. Oh, jeez. You just can't because of stadium availability in some cases. It's just impossible. I mean, what if you have another car show in Seattle? So, stuff like that.
Go out and play in Tukwila.
Yeah, anyway. No, I'm not a fan of the replay. I think that's a very outdated thing. I had heard some rumblings that they were going to go away from it. I think they will in the next few years. That's the worst thing. That's the thing you don't want to happen if you already have match compression, schedule compression. You don't want to have to add another game onto it.
Then Tyler Rice comes in and says his dream would be 4 levels of promotion relegation with MLS 1 and 2, USL Championship, and League 1. There'd be a safety net you can't drop below, but would have movement among the 4 tiers. You could also have a last lifeline with a relegation playoff game between MLS 17 and USL 3. So he's got both he has the Bundesliga working here, and he's got the English leagues of promotion and relegation working. It's a European hybrid for Tyler now.
But what I would tell Tyler is that until things dramatically change in terms of revenues and expenditures and all of that, the gap between USL Championship and a bottom of MLS at 40 teams is astronomical. So I don't think it's going to work that way anytime soon. I think you would see promotion relegation between MLS 1 and 2, promotion relegation between USL Championship and USL League 1. And for teams to move up from USL to MLS, it would probably be a similar way as it is now in terms of business and cost and all that type of side of it. Now, if USL can improve their business to the point that those teams are in the ballpark of what a bottom MLS team is bringing in or making, then it's a different conversation. But right now, it's just not even close. It's not even close. Even with some of the lower spenders in MLS right now, it's just not even close. So if you're Louisville City and you got promoted tomorrow, you're not ready for that. You're nowhere near ready for that. And what I would argue is that the argument from people has always been that, oh, well, you would get more sponsors and things would just magically change. It doesn't play that way, y'all. That's not how things work. There's not 5 companies in Louisville that are saying, oh, well, if they got into MLS, I would go ahead and drop $3 million each. You know, it's not there. It takes time to build that. Over time, can you get your revenues closer to where, okay, yeah, sure, you're going to have more exposure in MLS, and you can make more money on sponsorships and things. Sure, you can. But you don't want that to have to be doubling your budget. That's the type of issue that you're looking at right now. So one day, maybe, Tyler, but I think you're probably going to see a split between MLS and USL for the foreseeable future in terms of what that looks like. It's just different business models and different, realities and how it's going. Garlic Bread Warlord, who has a Soccer Over There hot drop coming out at 2:00, is excited about the calcio on deck with Milan and Bologna. Looks like there's been heavy snowfall in recent days.
Only 4 feet.
Crap. Yeah, looking at the pictures, that's not going to be easy to play in. Okay, good times. I'm assuming that's on the ESPN Plus. That might be worth a watch to see if anybody builds a snowman. Maybe a goalkeeper does during the match. That'd be kind of cool.
Or throw snowballs at players that they are dissatisfied with from the stands.
Yeah, well, that'll probably happen. That's not a good idea, but anyway. Yeesh. All right. I think we have talked about playoffs and formats and all of that all the way through. The only last thing I want to add to it is El Mataflow. Jorge says, in Liga MX, playoff games until the final that end in a tie go to the team that finished higher in the table as the higher seed. That is what I would have added. That is absolutely what I would have added to the 2-leg series. I think that would have prioritized the regular season. And honestly, Jarrett, if you look at it right now, we're worried about lower seeds coming in and being negative and playing for penalties. What if you had that here in a 1 game? What if you had that the higher seed, if it's a draw at the end of, say it doesn't go to extra time, say you have to go to extra time, and if it's a draw, the higher seed goes through. You don't get penalties. You don't get to play for penalties if you're the lower seed. How'd you feel about that?
That would be amazing. It'd be weird because I would feel bad for, because there's always going to be something where you can poke a hole. Whether or not that hole is legitimate or not remains to be seen. You could have a situation where, a team comes in like, I'm trying to think of a good example from this year. Early in the season, LAFC plays Seattle. And if you remember, I think it was first or second week of the season, LAFC goes to Seattle and wins.
First week.
And, yeah, Seattle, just go look at the game flow of that game and go looking for expected goals. You could get a game like that where it's a draw and the home team is just peppering the you-know-what out of that goal. Or, the road team is peppering, the you-know-what out of the goal and can't find one. And the home team finally goes, we get through with the draw. We'll take it. There might be cases like that. I think that you can always kind of create a what-if scenario or, be contrarian about it. It would be very interesting, though, and there would be a lot of we get a lot of fan posts out of that from every single blog on the universe.
That would be wild if the visiting team has to win, the lower seed team has to win to move on. In a 1 game, the higher seed has the tie break. I'm not necessarily disliking the idea. I think that could work. That'd be intriguing. Anyway. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in 2019 with our new playoff format in Major League Soccer. We'll get into other Tuesday thoughts on kits, on managerial searches, and more after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Tuesday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down Here. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. John, FC Cincinnati has acquired a new defender as they continue to build out their squad.
Leonardo Bertoni has shown up from Young Boys, spent 8 years there, and he was impressed when the coaching staff actually went to Switzerland to catch up with him, and that was what kind of got him hooked. And so now Bertoni will be a part of the discussion with guys like Garza and Waston. So Garza, Waston, and now Leonardo Bertoni will be a part of
Those are
the back.
Very different discussions. What position does Bertoni play?
He is box to box and can spend time as a CDM as well.
If he's box to box, he's a midfielder, not a defender.
Well, that.
So it has nothing to do with Garza and Waston. Yeah, I was completely baffled. So he's going to play in the midfield.
Yeah, he's a midfielder.
Okay, cool. And yeah, FC Cincinnati, I'm intrigued to see what they do, is because Garza will be on the left, we know. Waston will be a center back, possibly a captain. Forrest Lasso, I think, will compete for starting spot at center back, among others. It's right back if they get Alvis Powell, that works too. You get Powell, Garza, two guys who can get forward. This guy, Bertoni, does he fit into the middle? How does it work with Fatai Alashe? What's the combination look like? So they've got a lot of pieces. I think they've got a lot of questions answered as to, okay, you've got people in these positions. Now it's just how does it come together, and how does Alan Koch do in year one in MLS?
And the fact that Koch and the staff went to go see Bertoni play in Switzerland was one of the reasons that Bertoni was A, intrigued, and then B, signed. He was quite impressed with the fact that they made the trip to go see him, to check him out in person.
I'll go to Switzerland to hang out and watch a game, sure.
I hope they went and saw him in person.
Yeah.
I hope they didn't just sign him based off of YouTube clips.
Well, that would be Minnesota.
Yeah. Occupying an international roster spot upon the receipt of his P1 visa and international transfer certificate.
Yeah, that's all typical language. I think, when you see these types of signings, don't worry about that. That is in everything that gets said. He'd be an international, the P1 visa and all that. Then, yeah, you have to get all that done before he can officially join a roster, and that doesn't matter until the end of February anyway, right before the season starts. We don't know the schedule yet. We don't know all the home openers, but Stephen Goff reported in the Washington Post that Atlanta will be headed to D.C. to face D.C. United for the home opener at Audi Field, and it would be March 2nd or 3rd, probably more likely on the 3rd, and be a national television game. In that article as well, Goff said that Mercedes-Benz Stadium's unavailable that weekend due to Supercross. So Atlanta will be on the road for week 1, according to Stephen Goff at the Washington Post.
Just play around it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, something like that.
Get the whoop-de-doos. Go over the whoop-de-doos and through the goalposts like the old days.
Just play around it. It's fine. Hit a free kick. Knock Sparky Carmichael. Is he still racing? Off a bike?
Not good.
It's with Jim Pomeroy and Evel Knievel. P.T. Martinez is apparently in the starting 11 in Club World Cup at 11:30 on FS2.
Yeah, it's no surprise. P.T. Martinez and River Plate as they face Al Ain to move on to the final. You would expect against Real Madrid, although the way Real Madrid's been playing, who knows? We'll have to wait and see there. Other news, as things continue to pop up this morning, Luis Muzzi is now your official Executive Vice President of Soccer Operations in Orlando City. I guess he's not making roster decisions in Dallas anymore. Don't know how that whole thing went down because there was a lot of back and forth about, well, he was involved in Orlando's decisions, well, he was under contract to Dallas. I don't know. He's in Orlando now. We know that much. And we know Dom Dwyer was trying to find a place to train yesterday. Had some problems with that.
Man.
Jordan Culver from Pro Soccer USA clarified a little bit. He said, according to Orlando City officials, Dwyer was on a pitch at Sylvan Lake Park that was not owned by Orlando City SC and was marked closed, and he was asked to leave by a county official. It's a county park. Orlando City has, I guess, ownership or operating rights to certain fields, and he was on a field that was not one of theirs, and there you go. So a little bit, of getting it blown out of proportion, but not good when your star striker tweets out that he's trying to find a place to train and because he can't at the team's training facility, which isn't completely their training facility because it's awkward.
In all caps.
He didn't go in all caps.
I thought he did.
No, don't put all caps on Mr. Dwyer now.
Jim Lepp wants to know when press has access to Darren Eales for clarification on the search process and then drilling down on expectations and timing.
No clue. Don't know. Derek Creighton had a question about this too, just wondering about all the secrecy. I think one of the reasons is because there's other clubs that are looking for managers. So if you're Atlanta United, you don't want to telegraph who you're talking to the LA Galaxy. You want to keep it as quiet as you can. So I don't know. This is something that goes round and round about how this goes in any sport here in the U.S. Honestly, how it goes in any sport around the world. How much should they talk about the search process and how that's going? I remember back when the announcement about Tata Martino was made, Darren talked about how it would be a global search and how it would really, truly get underway after, the season was over, and now you're a week plus into that. So what is it looking like? What is the timeline? The timeline, as far as we know at this point, is when the season's going to start. When roughly the CONCACAF Champions League is going to start. Roughly, or I'm sure they probably know for sure on the other side of it, when training camp starts and what that's going to look like. That's what you're working backwards from. So you want somebody in as soon as possible. I do think that people are overstating how much a manager's role would be in terms of player acquisition. And I think this happens a lot. I don't think they would be that involved in player acquisition. I don't think they're going to come out and say, I want this player or I'm not coming. I don't think you're going to hire that manager. That's not how this team is built. It's not how many teams are built. I don't know where that kind of got started, that's common. It's not. Just go look at Jose Mourinho or Manchester United. How often did he talk about wanting certain types of players and not getting them?
All
didn't have
the
that
time.
say. But he didn't have that say. So why would somebody coming to Atlanta United have that say? That's important.
I'm just saying that you've
understand.
talked about it a lot.
Yeah, I know. I got you. But I'm saying that this is important because we always keep coming back to, well, you got to hire the manager so you can go with the players. No, that's not how it works. The only place in MLS that it works that way is Kansas City, and it's Peter Vermes, who has been there for a long time, and he was the technical director before he became the manager when Kurt Onalfo was fired back in it was been 2009, I think, or 8, somewhere in that ballpark. I mean, it's been a while for Vermes. So that's the only place that works. Whoever gets hired here is not going to be making all of those decisions. They'll have input, sure, but that doesn't mean they get the final say. So I think I understand the concern. I totally do. But we don't know we don't know who they're talking to and what contractual obligations who they're talking to could have at the moment. And if it is Guillermo Barros Escalotto, who we know is under contract through December 31st, he is not renewing his contract or signing a new one with Boca Juniors, so he will be available contractually after December 31st. Maybe you're waiting for that to come up and make an announcement immediately after. Who knows? Maybe it's somebody else entirely. You know, there had been links to Sampaoli, who will be introduced at Santos today, so that's not happening. There were links to Gabriel Milito, which have been really quiet since. That's honestly the ones that have been linked publicly. But how often have we seen, Jarrett, and with this club's history, guys come kind of out of nowhere to either sign a contract or get mentioned with this team? There could be managers that they're talking to that we don't know about right now.
Yeah, they could go full team, no leaks.
Which they're pretty good at.
Yeah, you look one way, we're going the other way. I wouldn't put it past them. They've probably had discussions and negotiations and questions with people we haven't thought about yet. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, and it's the thing about it being such a worldwide marketplace. It's so hard to pin down where you could find a guy. I mean, you know what you're looking for, what we are looking for, what the fans are looking for, or expecting in terms of bringing in somebody in from South America once again. Doesn't mean that's exactly where they'll go. Doesn't mean they limit the search to just that either. They be all over the world searching. It's so hard to pin it down because it's like catching a rabbit in a field greased up with a blindfold on. You're asked to do a really hard task to try and pinpoint this.
Yeah, Darren made it clear on our first stoppage time live at Fado that they were not limiting themselves to Argentina or to South America. I don't think they have to. I know there's this concern about the pipeline. The credibility that Atlanta United's built in South America, I don't think it goes away if you don't hire a non-South American manager. I don't think it fades away. I mean, if you do what is being discussed and you go out and you get Pity Martinez and Miguel Almiron is sold for a big number, you would have then in your first 3 major transfer windows, you would have brought in who a lot of people felt like was the best player in the Argentine Superliga in 2016 in Miguel Almiron. You would have then brought in the following season the most promising young player in the Argentine Superliga in Ezequiel Barco. Then you would have sold one of your signings in Almiron for a big profit and a big number to Europe, and you go get who was just voted the best player in Argentina this past season in Pity Martinez. Just because you go get a manager who is not from Argentina, I don't think those things go away. I don't think that reputation decreases in South America, John. I think there is a certain level of manager that you expect to be here after what has happened in the first 2 years on the field, but I don't think it has to be South American.
No, I think that when you establish a reputation for attracting players and you set yourself up as a global brand, then I think that, yes, the pipelines that have been established, I don't think they just go away. I think that just because the manager's different, I think that frankly, players in South America will continue. You're going to continue to view Atlanta United as that destination to get you to the next stop that you want 2 stops from now. I just don't think that because one thing goes away, you're turning off a spigot. I think that folks still treat you as a destination, and then you sit there and it's like, okay, well, this manager might bring this out in me as opposed to, previous managers that I've had before. So no, I don't think that you're just shutting something off and cutting off an arm just because one thing changes. It doesn't mean that everything goes completely away. And I think that you're still an attraction, and I think that you attract yourself to even more players from even more possible pipelines and variations just because of what you've been able to do and who you've been able to bring in.
It's going to be interesting. I think this happens in every coaching search, though. We get really wrapped up in the process of how it goes. I'm not worried about Atlanta United not following a strong process here. There's been nothing in the club's history that would show you that they would make a rash decision at this point. The process I'm not really worried about. It's who is going to be the guy, what kind of tactics are they going to bring to the table, what kind of style are they going to bring to the table, and then are they successful or not? That's honestly all that I'm worried about at this point. So the sooner the better, but I don't think you're in any kind of critical worrying time at the moment about, okay, there's not a manager in place, it's time to freak out. I don't think you're anywhere near that right now. I really don't. So stay tuned. More will come for sure as the managerial carousel will continue to spin. I'm curious to see what the Galaxy do and what direction they go. I don't think Jose Mourinho is going to end up with the LA Galaxy, but that would make more sense than anywhere else in MLS I could imagine. He loves LA.
Would love that.
He loves LA. Every one of his teams is trained in LA at UCLA. He has a lot of connections out there. He loves that city. That would be a fascinating thing to happen. Don't see it. I don't see it here. I don't think the timing's going to work out, but man, how crazy would that be? Let's take our final break, come back, wrap everything up after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here, December 18th. It's Thursday Thoughts. We've had all the thoughts imaginable about the MLS Playoff Format change that will take effect for 2019. Couple news bits to share with you guys. ESPN is reporting that Mexico will play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on June 5th as they prepare for the Gold Cup. That could be Tata Martino's homecoming. That'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yes, it would. Yes,
you'll see a lot of non-Mexico fans in that building.
If they can get tickets from the Mexico fans, because they kind of show out.
It's true.
TGiant.com.
Yeah, secondary market never dies. Never, it is undefeated.
Yeah, we'll see. Charlie Boehm had a great tweet about that. He said, "Good God, Mexico might play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the biggest story of the year in U.S. soccer, before the United States men's national team do." What a statement that would make. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm salty that the women aren't going to come through before the World Cup, but that's just me.
I am also salty about this. There are some concerns on the referee side that the union that represents referees who call MLS, USL, and WSL games across the U.S. and Canada, they've taken a strike authorization vote after filing an unfair labor practice charge against the Professional Referees Organization, PRO. Our friend Jonathan Tannenwald has everything over at Philly.com, so go check it out. But they're not happy that Pro delayed and canceled meetings from July through October about bargaining on a new CBA. The last CBA was signed in 2014. It expires on January 19th. The referees union tried to get the CBA rolling way ahead of time. Well, it sounds like Pro delayed and canceled and pushed and said no and have just made it difficult. So we don't want to see a situation like what happened in 2014 where Pro had a lockout of referees that lasted 2 weeks into the MLS season. We really, really don't want to see that. We really, really don't want to see that.
That would be bad.
You can complain about referees all you want, and yes, I do it too. But, there's a big drop. When you get past MLS and USL referees, it's a huge drop of referees who have professional experience. So, no, get this done, Pro and Referees Union, and please don't have a lockout. Don't have replacement referees in regular season matches. Please, please, please don't have this happen.
That would be bad, Jerry. Very bad.
That would be beyond bad. Couple bits of MLS news. Nacho Piatti says this will be his last year in Montreal. He's under contract through 2019. He was in San Lorenzo along with Tito Villalba this past weekend for a send-off game for one of their legendary players that both of them played with. And Piatti talked about how he would, kind of love to come back to San Lorenzo to end his career. So could easily see a scenario where he plays 2019 in Montreal and then plays the second half of that season, the 2019-20 Argentine Superliga in San Lorenzo. Maybe stays on another year. It just depends on where he's feeling at that point. But Piatti back to San Lorenzo is probably a go after 2019. Michael DeLue of Chicago, he says he's still negotiating with the Fire, but he said it doesn't look like he's going to return. That's a big loss for Chicago, in my opinion. Bad luck with an ACL injury for him. He missed most of the season, but I thought he was one of their better pickups in recent years. And unless they're going to upgrade, I'd love to see DeLue back with Chicago. I thought he was a very good player for that group. Cincinnati, big bit of news for them. They're breaking ground on their new West End Stadium today. So be on the lookout for all the pictures with shovels and hard hats and ceremonial digging and all the things that happen on breaking ground. But it's an exciting day for FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, you get a player signing in the morning, you're breaking ground on your stadium, and it's just more and more things that keep adding up for FCC. And them coming to MLS, I just wonder what is going on in the office right now, because it's coming fast and furious, and then all of a sudden it's training camp, and then all of a sudden you're playing. I mean, this is the sprint to the 2019 season for them, but it's fun to see all the pieces come together.
Well, there's no excuse if they're not ready for it. I mean, it's not like anything caught them by surprise.
No.
That's what Minnesota said. Oh, it was such a short time. You knew you were coming in, and you knew what the schedule was. Don't give me that.
No, I was just specifically from the excitement factor of, hey, we've been building to this particular moment, and then now all these moments are happening. adding to other moments and getting toward a season. I was not equating FCC with Minnesota. I was just talking about the speed and the alacrity with which everything is coming in. As you know, hey, 2018 season's over, 2019's already here almost.
Yeah, they've been really good and prepared though. So I think the moves they've made have been steady building to this day and kicking off in 2019. I think they'll be fine. Jarrett, San Jose Earthquakes might be bringing in a respected veteran in Carlos Salcido from Chivas, former player of Matias Almeida. He is reportedly leaving Chivas, and the rumors are linking him to the Earthquakes to join up with Almeida. Be a good get for the Earthquakes.
Don't worry, they'll blow it in the ninth.
Man. Well, Magnus Eriksson looks like he's going back to Sweden.
Yeah, good on him. It's just a lot to look. There's going to be a lot of interesting things to watch with the Earthquakes next year. I'm going to be very curious, what they look like next year, and kind of using, I guess, even middle of next year and then end of next year as kind of a checkpoint to see, okay, where are we at, compared to where we were when we were, a fringe playoff team, then, worst team in the league. How are we in this rebuild process?
Here's another one for Jarrett, right in his wheelhouse. Scottish Premiership.
There you go.
Rumors related to what we're doing. Paul Tenorio, Chicago Fire defender / midfielder Matt Polster, and homegrown left back Andrew Gutman are currently in Scotland on trial with Rangers.
Sweet.
Why
Rangers
sweet?
sitting there. I think they're sitting there either first or second in the league. Celtic lost this week. Yeah, because Celtic lost this weekend.
Celtic's in third.
Yeah, Celtic's a mess. Celtic has problems.
They're 1 point back. It's not like
Lee Griffiths is taking an indefinite leave for personal reasons. So, they don't have a striker right now.
Yeah,
Edson Odard is the only striker on that team, and Brendan Rodgers has not figured out, has just not gotten anything out of them. They backed into the 32 in the Europa League, and nothing is really going well more than a week at a time in Glasgow.
Well. They have a game in hand on Rangers. They have 2 games in hand on Kilmarnock. They have only conceded 10 goals this season. They have a plus 26 goal differential. It's not that bad.
Yikes. Wow.
It still has not been reassuring for a lot of fans.
Sure. But it's not that bad. But Rangers might be upgrading. Maybe. I don't know Gutman that well. I think
Steven Gerrard's done well up there, I think. I like what he's done.
Yeah, there's talk about Gutman being a homegrown signing for Chicago and what he could do as a left back. They're also looking at other left backs from South America with Brandon Vincent's retirement. Polster's a player I like a lot. I don't know if he fits best as an 8 or as a right back. He's played in both roles with Chicago. Polster to Scotland would be a very interesting move. I don't know if that's an upgrade for him from MLS to Scotland, if it's a sideways move, if it's a downgrade. I don't know. What do you think, Jarrett? How does that compare at this point? And I know Rangers and Celtic are different than other Scottish clubs, but do you think that's a good move for Polster? Do you think it's just a sideways move? Do you think it's a bad move?
I don't think the Scottish League is as fast. You can get away with not just torching the earth. Man, in a vacuum, I'd love to see Tito Villalba go play in Scotland because I think he'd just burn everyone alive. And Tito's got that. He's from the right town in Argentina to be able to take the physicality and not back down. Because it can get rough, but I don't know. Polster going over there, that's going to be interesting. My favorite, because the last guy I'm thinking of that made that jump from one to the other was Senderos jumping from Rangers over to Houston. And my lasting image of him in Rangers is watching him just try to slide tackle somebody and basically slide off the field. Man. And then he comes into Houston and it clicked. It worked well. I don't know for Polster how that's going to go. I think it's just got to be the right fit. I don't think it has to be damning about either one of the leagues one way or another. I think it just has to be the right fit.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. People go round and round about how MLS compares to Scotland at this point, and I mean, overall, I think MLS is a better league than Scotland, but when you take Celtic and Rangers and compare them to MLS, like how would they finish in MLS? How would Atlanta compare to Celtic and Rangers?
I'd love to have like Celtic and Rangers and Red Bulls, Atlanta and Sporting Kansas City and have them play. That'd be fun.
I think it's pretty even. It's very different. It's when you get teams from different leagues and different styles playing each other, you get those types of just clash of styles. But I think MLS has gotten past that. That doesn't mean for some players though that it's not a good move to go to play in Scotland. I think it's a lateral move, but if you're in a situation that you don't like in Chicago and you have an opportunity to go to Rangers, who are on top of the Scottish Premiership, and hey, not a bad move to be in. Another bit that we'll update you on more tomorrow, things are moving forward in Columbus with all of the different votes that have to happen to get a new stadium and move the Mopfre Stadium site over to the community park that they're talking about. That would include training facility. Franklin County passed a resolution 3-0, and things are moving forward in good ways for Columbus. They have a bit of a time crunch. They're trying to get all this done before the end of the year, but it sounds like that they have the votes and they have the support, and things are going to be okay in Columbus for the crew moving forward. Now they just got to get the sale knocked out with Precourt and the rest of the group and get everything done.
Yeah, and I just, I want all of these I's dotted, T's crossed, and Haslam's in, Precourt's out, all that stuff. Let's just get it all figured out so that way Precourt can get to Austin and get the trees figured out over at McCalla Place where things don't blow up anymore.
Yeah, there's that. I think he's got some other issues he's got to deal with too, and fighting things out and all that. 11:18 is what it looks like the broadcast is on FS2, River Plate, and Al Ain in the semifinals of the FIFA Club World Cup. If you want to watch Pity Martinez, who could be an Atlanta United player in 2019, that's what the going word on the street is. We'll see. We'll see what happens. There's still lots of time between now and kickoff of CONCACAF Champions League in February for things to shift. But P.T. Martinez and River Plate kickoff broadcast 11:18 on FS2. I think that's the only place you can watch it at the moment. I don't see it on any other channel as I scroll through. So there you go. We'll be back tomorrow with a Wall Pass Wednesday. We'll take your questions. If you have more about the playoffs, if you have questions about P.T. Martinez, managers, Jose Mourinho, Rangers, Scotland, comparisons to Europe, whatever you want to get into, we'll get into it tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all. Sorry, I was distracted by Scotland just being bad.
Mucha upholstery, y'all.
Distracted by haggis.